Hey guys, this is Kamaguno, and today I'm doing Kamaguno's Best Comics of the Week, and this week I have about 14 comics, which is my average amount of comics these days. So let's get into it. Number 14, my least favorite, and this is the show where I go least favorite to Best Pick of the Week. So, number 14 for me this week is Detective Comics, issue 1005. This is the end of the Arkham Knight story, and I was actually pretty excited for this arc in general. I thought it was something new and different, but I just feel like it never met its potential, and I kind of realized that with its exposition issue. I was like, oh, this is a really cool character you're explaining, but then once we saw her, I'm like, all the potential of what she was didn't really meet in the present time. And here it's mostly a battle between Batman and Arkham Knight. I guess it was kind of interesting to see her try to make everyone bats and make everyone blind. I thought was cool. But other than that, it's just a very actiony issue of a villain I didn't quite care about. So, and then in the end, it's open-ended. It's like, alright, we'll probably see more of her. So, overall, I'm going to give Detective Comics issue 1005 2 stars. Pretty solid artwork, though. That definitely was the strongest aspect of this series. Honestly, there was no bad artwork this week, which I was really happy about with my lower picks. Alright, moving on to number 13. And number 13 for me is Superman issue 12. I got the Adam Hughes cover here, which I think I might be dropping for a little while, at least for this arc, because I am not into the Rogal Zar, Let's Find Krypton's Secrets arc. I've never really been into the science fiction aspect of Superman, and I'm not a huge sci-fi fan in general, so having Superman in space, it's just not interesting me. And I love Supergirl as a character, but I'm not reading her current ongoing series because I just do not like what they're doing with her and the whole Rogal Zar storyline as well. So I think I'm going to drop this one. The thing I like the most about it, I guess, is seeing the Superman family teaming up. Kara, John, and Clark was pretty cool. But again, just not interested in the plot. But the artwork is really strong for this book. And that's one of the biggest pluses of Superman right now. So, like I said, probably going to drop this series. But I will stick with Action Comics because that's the one I'm enjoying a little bit more. And we'll see when I could kind of jump onto this one again. But I think it's a good idea to leave this one behind for now. So that is my number 13, and I'm going to give that 2 stars. Moving on to number 12, which is Champions, issue 6, which is actually a book I really like. I do like the writer a lot. Really like this variant cover. But this issue is kind of what I don't like about the War of the Realm tie-ins. It focuses so much on the enemies and their uninteresting story for me, and not enough on these characters, and it feels like it just kind of takes a detour. But the stuff I did enjoy, which is why it's not like, least favorite, is I did like Miss Marvel. I like that she found out what happened with Miles, had a vision of it, and then she's like, I don't think I could be leader with everything that's happened. But really, that's only 2 pages of the book. The rest of the book is War of the Realm stuff. It was cool to see some characters we haven't seen in a while, like Hummingbird. If you remember way back when the Scarlet Spider series, she was kind of like the sidekick to Ben Reilly. Definitely one of the better aspects of that series. So, I'm sorry, to Kane. It was Kane's Scarlet Spider series. She was a sidekick to him. They were in Texas. It was a pretty cool series. I actually really enjoyed it because I am a Kane fan. So it was cool to see her and Vision kind of interact for a little bit, and she actually had a big part in this issue. But it also feels really crowded. Like, characters that that are C-list, D-list characters are here, like Hummingbird. Like, not a lot of people know who she is. I only know because I read that series way back when, and I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. So it's weird to see these kind of D-list heroes alongside our other heroes where you're like, I just want to focus on the team. So I think the biggest thing is, like, it just didn't have a focus this issue. Artwork, again, solid. I thought the artwork was really good for this book, and there's some good action, but just felt like this story could have been told in another issue, and it detoured us a little bit. And the last tie-in was so much better for me, and probably one of the best War of the Realm tie-ins so far. So Champions issue 6 for me gets 2 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, which is Leviathan issue 1. And I actually have not really been into this event so much, and it's weird because I actually was looking forward to it. I really like the artist. I like Maleev. I think he does a great job, and the coloring in this book is just fantastic. Probably some of the best coloring I've seen this year. It's just off the wall, and the artwork is just so good. Look at that. Look at the blues. Oh my god. Love the art. Anyways, talking about the story though, every single time I want to get into it, I've been reading Action Comics, I'm like, alright, this is the issue where I'm going to really like it. There's a cool premise here. It just is so slow. And honestly, this is the same issue I have here. It's about the political aspect of this book, the DEO, and all these different organizations of DC Comics, and I just don't quite care. I want to see the mystery unravel a little more. I want to see these detectives interact more. And honestly, it's just so small here. We get to see Batman and Lois kind of have a little bit of a back and forth here. Is okay. I think there were some good one-liners there, but nothing. Everything was pretty surface level. And then Green Arrow kind of randomly jumps in, and then for some reason Steve Trevor is not really like the Steve Trevor we know, and he's talking gibberish about Leviathan, which I'm sure is going to be important information in the future. So I didn't like the interaction as much as I wanted to, but I am interested in these detectives actually teaming up and hopefully having some good character moments that Bendis is obviously known to write in his past. So we'll see what ends up happening. Artwork's really good though, but just not into the event as much. Even the way it ends, I'm like, oh, that's it? Where's the other page? Like, okay, like, what's going on? I get it. He doesn't want fear in the world. He wants to have this new order. I'm like, all right, I've seen that before. That's kind of generic of a plot for a villain. I want to see why this character is so important. I think there's so much hype around him, and it's just like, all right, and tell me why there should be hype around him. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. 2.5 stars. And the big reason being the artwork was gorgeous and kind of leveled this issue up a little bit, but honestly wasn't too interested in the story for this one. But hopefully that'll change. I keep saying that, but I don't know. But I am going to stick with it to see where that series goes. Now, moving on to number 10, which is Archie, issue 705. Another series I just have not been really enjoying and debating on dropping, and probably will drop for the time being until, things seem to change with this Riverdale direction. And honestly, it was from that first monologue, and I guess it was Jughead who's speaking. I'm like, oh, this is so Riverdale, and I don't care about the soapiness of this book. I think there's a difference between drama and soap, and this kind of leans into the soap a little bit too much and the unnecessary drama for me. So I gave this 2.5 stars. I'm just not really enjoying it. I will say the moment I enjoyed the most was Betty and Veronica, just because, they're dealing with the Archie stuff. And then we have Veronica wanting to knock down this forest, and then Betty's like, oh, I want to save this forest. And they think they're teaming up with each other and BFFs, and obviously they're going to run into some problems when they actually do encounter this. But other than that, don't quite care about the Bachelor side of Riverdale, literally the Bachelor side of Riverdale, and the spookiness that they're trying to have here. Just not my style for Archie, but I think if you do like Riverdale, you will enjoy this book a little bit more, even though I think it's a bit lighter than Riverdale, and believe it or not, less soapy than Riverdale. So yeah, I'm gonna drop this one, I think, for a little while. It doesn't mean I won't go back to it. I'm sure I will, but just gonna take a little break to see some of these arcs play through, and then when an arc seems interesting, I'll go pick it up again. So, and I also do have a lot of other Archie books, so I'm getting my Archie fill in other ways. So Archie issue 705 gets 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 9, which is Wonder Twins issue 5, which actually today, as I record this, was actually announced that both Wonder Twins and Dial H are going to be maxi series, meaning they're going to have 12 issues instead of 6. And really love Dial H. It's one of my favorite DC books right now. Wonder Twins, I thought, had a really good start, but kind of went down a little bit for me after probably issue 2 or so. So I'm going to continue to pick it up, though. I do think it's a fun comedy, but I think because it's just a comedy, the plot kind of dwindles. These villains that are not quite villains aren't as interesting to me, and I think some of the political humor doesn't fit the book as much. It feels a little forced for the issue, even though I do think the writer is good at political humor and did a good job within Flintstones. But you definitely get to see that here in this issue as well. And not a lot of Wonder Twins. I wanted to see the Wonder Twins more, and they're not really involved. And kind of these side stories, again, that I'm not as invested with these villains, consume this issue a bit more. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I thought it was an okay issue. There's some good humor here, but it's not as good as that issue 1 was for me. So I do think I'll be sticking around, though, until the Maxi's over. But we'll see what direction it goes in. Moving on to number 8. I was disappointed to see this so low because I've been really liking this series. And that is Spider-Man Life Story issue 4, the 90s. And come on, it's the 90s. It's 90s in comics. I was going to say there's some interesting stories in the 90s, but it's like, 90s in comics, I don't know. But yeah, that's actually what happens here, is that obviously, something that happened in the 90s and in this time span is the Clone Saga, the big effects of the Clone Saga. And they definitely try to deal with it in this issue, and this was the first time I felt like the issue was too overstuffed. I know that's been complaints for Life Story, but I honestly loved that aspect. I loved how quick everything was. I'm like, oh my god, that just happened, this is a crazy issue. And I think issue 2 especially is where it was at, and I was like, oh my god, that was one of the best issues I read this year, and I loved it as a Spider-Man fan. And this issue, I thought it was a little bit too much, especially with the clone stuff, where you're like, okay, because if you've read the Clone Saga before, you know what's happened, where Peter thought he was the clone, and then, people got upset. It's like, he's not the clone, don't worry. So in this issue, that kind of happens in, like, a span of 2 pages, where Dr. Octopus is like, you're the clone! And he's like, no, and Ben's like, the Ben we all thought is like, oh, well, what do I do? I always thought it was Ben Reilly. And these memories, are they true or are they not? And then by, like, 2 pages later, when Peter talks to Norman, he realizes, no, I'm not the clone. So it was a little bit too flip-floppy for me. And then Norman gets a heart attack. There's so much going on. Harry dies. It felt a little bit too cluttered for me for this type of issue. This honestly felt like it needed about 2 issues to expand on what the characters have been through. Like, what has Ben been doing? Honestly, I felt like I don't even know what Peter's been doing besides that he's like this business mogul at this point, and he's not really close to his family. But by the end, I thought, what made this issue is the theme of not wanting to be like Norman, not even knowing that his son died, and, breaking down, having the heart attack because he found out his son died. Peter's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Let me be with my family. So I like that ending, and I am excited to see where the 2000s will go. I think this is a little bit of a hiccup of an issue, but I think it could definitely redeem itself by the next. So, which I think is the last one, right? I mean, there's like a 2010s as well. Probably a 2010s as well. So I think there's probably 2 more issues. But yeah, overall giving this one 3 stars. Mark Bagley's artwork is superb in this book, but the story was a lot for me in this one. I think they could have broke it down a little bit more, or maybe not have so much going on, like Norman's heart attack, even though that honestly drove the plot pretty well. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Ironheart, issue 7. Definitely a fun book. It's a bit one-shotty, so if you're not into one-shot stories, I think you could skip these type of stories or issues, but I like that she's teaming up with the champions. I really like Nadia as a character, so it's cool to see them team up. But the plot, once again, is probably the weakest part of these team-ups. It's just like, alright, they're fighting a zombie apocalypse, and obviously they're not real zombies, but they're fighting that, and it's like, oh, it's cute. It's cool to see these characters interact and, how they save the day, but it's pretty much by the numbers, let's save the day. So, like I said, if you like these characters, pick it up. I think it's a really fun read, and it's cool to have Riri have fun, because her earlier series is very serious, so it's cool just to see her have friends, and that's always cool. And the artwork is really good for this book as well, especially in costume. I think some of the superhero action is just really good in this book. So, overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. It was fun, but I think I did like the Miles story a little bit more story-wise and character-wise. This was just like, alright, let's see some zombie action and have these 2 scientists work together. Even though I don't feel like they played up the scientist aspect as much as they could have with Nadia and Riri in this issue. It was just kind of in the beginning of the issue. Alright, moving on. That was 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Glow, issue 2. Really excited for the show to return. I think this month or so. I think it's returning soon. But I really like Glow. It's a really fun show. I always really binge it quickly. And I really like this comic because it doesn't feel like a one-off series. It does feel like it's in continuity and it's making progress in the plot, but it's not, wrecking anything the show's doing. It's like, oh, this is this total change of these characters that you have to read the comic if you want to watch the show. No, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like, all right, we're making a comic. What do we do? Well, we can't do much because the TV show is on. I really think it balances the story really well through the characters and expands the world as well too, where we get to see real woman wrestlers say, hey, these are actors. Why are they, trying to be like us? Why are they at this convention? And, they start butting heads and we see how the different personalities of the girls deal with this. So I had a lot of fun. I like that the artwork is pretty cartoony and it's just a cool comedy book. And there's a lot of characters. So if you've never watched the TV show Glow, go watch it because I think you'll be confused as hell if you've never seen it and then watch this. And then you might not be as confused. But honestly, even as someone who likes the show a lot, I forget which character is which sometimes. So, definitely look at the guide in the front if you need help. But yeah, I enjoyed this issue. I thought it was fun. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Incredibles 2, Secret Identities issue 3, which is the last issue of this miniseries, which I loved. Probably the best Incredibles offshoot story I've read in a while. And that's because it deals with fun superhero tropes of this kid who is in Violet's school who ends up being a daughter of a supervillain. And she has to make the choice of, do I protect my dad or do I do the right thing? And she ends up doing the right thing, and it elevates Violet and hers friendship, and hopefully we get to see them again in the future. I will say there's some stuff that happened too easily, like the mother saying, oh, I left because of this, and you guys changed your names. I didn't know where you were, and she didn't seem that panicked by the end of the issue. And then the dad kind of turns over a new leaf a little bit too quickly as well as he goes to jail. So those are kind of the nitpicks I have with the issue, but I think the Violet and her friend, or I think her name's Rose, but yeah, it was cool just to see them connecting and having Violet have another person with powers outside her family and how that affects her family dynamics. So I thought it was a really fun series, and if you like Incredibles at Disney, I think this is one of the best stories we've gotten in a while. And artwork is a lot of fun as well, with some good action sequences between the heroes and villains in this issue. Incredibles 2 issue 3 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 23, which was our epilogue here. I will say there's some parts where I didn't really need them in the issue, like the superheroes going into Central Park and trying to wrangle up all the villains. I think lasted too long. It lasted a few pages. Obviously love the MJ and Peter stuff, where you think MJ gets hurt because of somebody, which I feel like, somebody was looking at her. We don't know who it is still, so I like that mystery. And there's this caterpillar that goes in and says, hey, I was trying to protect MJ. You're going to be the one who ends up killing her. So we'll see where that goes. But just love them kind of having solace with each other, so that was good. And then the ending with Kraven was okay. It's like, all right, we got another Kraven coming up, and then Chameleon shows up by the end of the issue. That was kind of a weird cliffhanger that I'm guessing will play a bigger part in future issues. But the reason this was so high, it was really nice to see Otley's artwork again. He really does a good job here, and it was a good epilogue. I think it was a bit long. I don't think it needed a whole issue. I think it could have been half the issue and accomplished the same things. And I didn't love the Hunted story arc, and I think that's why I'm that blog was okay, because I thought the story was okay. It wasn't the best. I think some other Nick Spencer stories in Spider-Man were better. But yeah, it was a pretty cool story, and I think there are some good character beats and some good seeds planted for the future, which is always what you want with the epilogue. So, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 23 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, gonna get a sip of water. There was every Spider-Man book that came out this week. So number 3 for me is The Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, issue 7, which was a really solid read. My only complaint being the artwork, honestly. I thought it could have been a little more detailed with facial expressions, and I thought the artwork was a little bit too light at times. It's like, oh, I wanted a little bit of a darker complexion for the book. But I like this issue a lot, where we get to see Uncle Ben give money to a homeless person, and Peter, and this is younger, obviously, a flashback, and Peter's like, oh, well, we don't know what he's going to do with it. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter what he does with it. It's just to do the right thing. You can't control people. And I really like that, and how that weaved into Aunt May having a homeless shelter and someone trying to steal from the homeless shelter, and Prowler's there, and you know it's not Prowler, because he's not, like, that bad of a guy. He's a bad guy, but he's not that bad of a guy. So, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen here, and who's behind this, and I really like the whole friendly neighborhood aspect that Tom Taylor is actually weaving here, because Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man previous series, like, it was never about the neighborhood, it was just more about a Peter Parker book. So it was nice to see this is actually about the neighborhood, and that's fully the theme of just being a good person and being a good citizen. So, and another aspect that we learn is that Aunt May's insurance cannot pay for her cancer treatment. So MJ gets kind of pissed off about that. So we'll see maybe the whole family dealing with that as well, and MJ being included, and again, showing real life issues of something that a superhero can't save all the time. So I thought this was a really solid issue. Probably would have been higher if there was some stronger artwork, but I thought it was really solid, like I said. So I'm going to give this 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Jughead's Time Police, issue 1. Told you I'm getting more Archie books, don't worry, even if I'm not picking up the main title. This was so much fun. I really liked the previous Jughead series, especially towards the end where Derek Charm was doing the artwork, and this reminded me of that. It was a comedy book, and it felt like old school slice of life Archie, except with time travel, where Jughead's smart enough to build a time machine, and things don't go correctly because it's Jughead, and he's obviously gonna mess up. So I had a lot of fun with this one. I like the Archies were included with it, and it felt very slice of life. Artwork was so good for this book, and if you like that previous Jughead series, I definitely recommend this one. Very much in the vein of that a bit more, especially if you're not enjoying the Riverdale X-esque Archie series right now. This is a really good, fun slice of life book with, you know, time travel and I guess kind of sci-fi thrown into it, where he meets his future, well, actually, I think it's Archie's future granddaughter, great-granddaughter. So we'll see what that's all about in the next issue. So here's a picture of that. And who did Archie end up with? You know, have the great-granddaughter or granddaughter, whatever it's going to end up being. So I'm interested to see what that's going to be all about in the next issue. So, yeah, overall, going to give this 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to my pick of the week. And this week, my pick of the week is the Immortal Hulk, issue 19, and beautiful cover. I obviously got a lot of the Spider-Man variants this week, and I love that whole metal suit that Spider-Man has there. Definitely my cover of the week. And I really love this issue. I've been really enjoying Immortal Hulk. That hasn't been a secret, and it's been probably my most pick of the weeks of the year so far, or at least close to it, or most consistent pick of the weeks. And I really enjoyed this issue. I'm a big Betty fan, so it's cool to see her at the center, and her being tired of being the prey, being being the background character in a way, and she shows her true self. She shows that she's allowed to get angry, and that she is angry, and she thinks of herself as a monster, not even just as, you know, a Red She-Hulk or this Falcon type character she is, this bird-like character, but just as a person, she feels like a monster, and that's okay. You know, that's okay to feel that way. And I like the analogy in the beginning about the spider and being caught in the web, and she's like, well, screw that. Like, why can't the butterfly be free? Like, just kill all the spiders. And then the guy's like, well, spiders are really important because there'll be insects everywhere. So obviously it's an analogy of her relationship with the Hulk and Bruce, and I thought that was really cool how they end it, where Betty is just like, she's pissed off, she doesn't care anymore, and she starts eating Hulk's heart. Like, that's the horror stuff I love right there. It's like, whoa, Betty got to the point where this is her loved one, and she's just eating its heart. And it's cool to see how, I guess, her mind kind of got to that point and how she thinks of herself. She believes she is this monster, which is the whole point of this book, is to show the monster within. And I think that's so cool. And I really liked kind of the poeticness of this issue and just seeing Betty get to that point. And you know, again, she's not a perfect character. And that's kind of what I like about Betty, is that she, just like Bruce, is allowed to get angry and be flawed. And I think especially with romance characters and romantic interest characters, they have to be perfect. So it's nice to see, hey, their relationship is far from perfect. And they, honestly, at this point, probably shouldn't even be together. But we'll see how that works out in future issues, as Hulk's heart is being eaten by his ex-wife. So we'll see how that works out. But I really enjoyed this issue. Again, it really delves into those horror themes really well. So yeah, gonna give this one 4.5 stars. It's really good, and if you like Betty, definitely go check out this issue. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go check out my comic books like Follow Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer, my Twitter and my Facebook. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Frontline Live, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. So be sure to check that out as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what were your least favorite comics, your favorite comics of the week, and everything in between. Thanks, guys. Bye.